Good evening, good evening, good evening. The Anglo-Zanu PF civil war is here upon us. We are witnessing the civil war of Zanu PF, and who thought it was gonna be only 8 years before we see the same script playing? Like you remember the script of 2017, it's playing exactly in the way that it's supposed to be playing right now. And what's funny is that when you look at 2017, for example, or when you look at the year Korelipigo, when you look at when you look at 2017, is that it's like no detail is being left behind. Yesterday we saw Tinoma Chakaire or Chinomudama Chakaire actually failing to read the letter that he was supposed to read. And normally a person like this, like Chris Mchangwa, let me just play.
Had nothing to do with it, and he had to come back and undo that thing, but undo it in a manner which did not arouse, the anxieties that he may be interfering with the judiciary. So it had to be a long, drawn-out affair. But me, my wife, who is the Minister of Women Affairs, we know that the president had nothing to do with it. So Bombshell is wrong. Comrade Bombshell is wrong to try to accuse the president. It's not true. Rather, the people who are telling him to go on televisions are the ones who are behind the persecution of my son. So I'm surprised for a field combat officer. He normally has got very good intelligence because he wouldn't have survived the war as a guerrilla fighter if his intelligence was fought. I don't know why he is being misled by being given chicken feet. It's in intelligence circles. What is being given is called chicken feed, that my son was incarcerated by the president and that I should not have a relationship with the president because he incarcerated my son. It's not true. I want to put it on record.
Okay, well, you still remember that we spoke about, Chris Mchangwa is one of those people that normally when he's speaking, you like he doesn't shut his mouth. He's all over this place. He's saying this, he's this and this. But yesterday we saw a different image of Chris Mchangwa, and that should tell you what is happening within Zanu PF itself. Now, I see that there is a lot of people that are on this media platform that are busy trying to predict this is going to happen in Zanu PF, or some people that are coming up telling you that there's giving you prophecies, the prophecies they were not seeing months ago but now they're seeing them now. Basically they can just read the events or they can read the information, not that they are prophesying anything of that particular sort, or they are good predictors, or they anything of that particular sort in terms of intelligence. But one thing also that comes out is we find people that are within the opposition that are telling us, or people that are in Zimbabwe that are telling us that is Mnangagwa and Chiwenga are one and the same thing. Basically, they are cut from the same cloth. There is nothing that we can actually do to prevent. There is nothing that is going to change. But also, our question then becomes, why would we want a ED 2030 if we don't do anything? If we don't support, or if we don't hype the Chiwenga faction, we are only left with the ED 2030, and judging by the current circumstances of things in Zimbabwe, an ED 2030 is the least thing to go. What is this? Businesses are closing down. Uh, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe is even forcing individuals to have pay as you go. I mean, pace. What do you call this? Is forcing people to what is this? Not to keep, like it's trying to force you not to keep money or physical money in your pockets. Basically, they want you to keep US dollars in your pockets. They are forcing you to spend it somewhere else. Not spend it, but put it into the bank so that you can steal it. There's a lot of decline in society, and all of this is being caused by Mnangagwa and this cabal. What Chiwenga does bring, though, he brings an element of like we have never seen him as a president. And I'm not saying that he's going to be a great president or he's going to lie on the side of being a great president. No, it's definitely not going to be like that. It might be the same as Mnangagwa. But there is that 0.1% chance that maybe Chiwenga would do some few things differently or some good things differently than Mnangagwa, than trying to populate the whole country with these children. But also another plus benefit side to having Chiwenga or to support Chiwenga is the matter of that whatever faction in Zanu PF that is going to lose this civil war, what will happen is that it will weaken Zanu PF further, and that is one thing that we on the side of the citizens, or rather the side of the opposition, would want to see. We would want to see a weaker Zanu PF. The factional battles within Zanu PF at this particular point in time cannot be the one that they wake up tomorrow and tell each other that, hey, Geza and me, we are now friends and blah blah blah, because they've accused him of crime and stuff like that. But also on the other side, Geza has undermined the authority of Emmerson Mnangagwa, basically telling him he's illegitimate. To wake up and shaking hands, it would automatically mean that Geza is the powerful person and Mnangagwa is the weaker person within Zanu PF. And Mnangagwa wouldn't want that. That is a strategically weak position to take. I mean, he wouldn't be able to influence loyalty within Zanu PF if he has to act in that, if he has to actually allow Geza to come back. So, in this factional battle, one faction has to actually lose these battles. I mean, one faction has to lose this battle. It has to be killed and completely eliminated on the battlefield. But however, if a faction loses, let's say Mnangagwa's faction loses, they are not going to let the other faction of Zanu PF lead Zimbabwe from a peaceful point of view where they are just going to do something like that. They are going to come back, and this is the position what we want, where Zanu PF will be in a perpetual fight, a perpetual fight for position, and that perpetual fight breaks down their unity, which will force them to be weak, and it eventually, if we somehow we have a stronger opposition leader like the great Morgan Tsvangirai again. I mean, I'm not talking about people that are too weak to fight Anachabangu, but I'm speaking about if we have a Morgan Tsvangirai again, and with the state of Zanu PF, whether it's going to be in a perpetual fight, where it's going to be in a perpetual fight, we can definitely take this country back. That is a That's why we are saying that the best strategic position is the one where you actually hype the Chiwenga faction, hype them, because at the end of the day, there is no solution that is on the table to actually counter the ED 2030 agenda, or the counter the ED Dambozane Kachipo. But before this, I just want to show you something like, I wonder what chapter 5, section 95 or section 96 of the constitution actually says about this. I mean, doesn't this call for you can't even hear him at this point, that's why I'm talking over it. But does this not call for him to actually resign because he can no longer perform his duties? The guy is sick. I wonder where is Kembo Mohadi's children? Where are his relatives when they see a sick man that is being taken out of bed to be forced to stand in front of the crowd and give a speech when he cannot do so? So the constitution clearly states if someone is unable to perform their duties, they need to be out. But Mugabe was doing that as well. I mean, he was performing duties while he was supposed to be out there, while he was supposed to be arresting. He was an old man, so the respect of the constitution was never ever respected within the country of Zimbabwe. But coming back to this whole thing, then, if you listen to Tinomuda Machakairi and you listen to Christopher Mchangwa's addresses, you can tell that all of them want to play on the line. None of them want to be in a position where they are rather seemingly hostile to one faction or the other. In fact, the fact that Zanu PF, the first secretary and the president of Zanu PF, has not yet actually issued a letter of suspension to Geza. It's telling, or other Zanu PF members have not issued a letter of suspension to Geza. It's telling. I wonder what is going to happen, because I've seen letters that are saying that there were disciplinary hearings that will be happening towards Geza, but nothing has happened as such. ED Dambuzwa Mnangagwa is not in power. or at least is not enjoying the full power that he does. Although the police move of trying to arrest Geza was somewhat some sort of an exercise, but people that surround him are rather idiots. I mean, listen to this guy.
tiri nguva yekuchema chema yanguva yekupinda muaction. Sometimes haisi nyaya yemari, but sometimes inyaya yeattitude nemindset. Because vanhu vanogona kungokumbura kuti hei handina mari yekurima, handina mari yekurima, but ukada kuzvitarisa pese patiri panapa hapana munhu asina kungobata mari. Kana imi majournalist mari makatombodzibata, zvekuti mashandisa kurima mungadai muchitorima izvizvi.
So this guy says that kana usati wambobata mari, speaking about like takambobata mari tese. I mean, what money is he talking about? Not all of us are within Zanu PF where these guys loot 15 billion US dollars. Most of the citizens can't even awakwanisa kubata kana nonzi $100 per month. Yet aruta hanzo tese tamboibata mari munhu kwasaita zvefarming. It's about a mindset. That is one of the leading propaganda that Zanu PF is fed to the youth in Zimbabwe, actually trying to blame them for the situations and the predicament that they've been facing in Zimbabwe. Telling a youth or telling someone in Zimbabwe or telling a young person in Zimbabwe that the predicament that they are facing, such as lack of economic participation, is the resultant of their own mindset and their weakness to act. While that might apply somewhere else, or that might apply, it does not exclude Zanu PF or the governance of the country of Zimbabwe. Particularly kana tichitarisa kuti ana OK vakuvhara makatadza 15 macurrencies. Let's say ever since Mnangagwa pakauya pakatadzwa 3 macurrencies. Tiri kutaura nyaya yetrade deficit, hamukwanisi kukipa magetsi, hamukwanisi a lot of things these people they cannot do. They cannot do the simplest of things. Yet this guy, I'll play it again, come up and tells the Zimbabwean public that poverty is their choosing.
Sometimes haisi nyaya yemari, but sometimes inyaya yeattitude nemindset. Because vanhu vanogona kungokumbura kuti hei handina mari yekurima, handina mari yekurima, but ukada kuzvitarisa pese patiri panapa hapana munhu asina kungobata mari. Kana imi majournalist mari makatombodzibata, zvekuti mashandisa kurima mungadai muchitorima izvizvi.
If you ever think that way, or if you have someone that is advising you that way, they are ill-advised, and listen to their leader that is advising them. Someone that is Mnangagwa is sitting with people that cannot think, that cannot read the environment. If they were smart, they would have told him that, hey, listen, we have done a lot of harm. I think what we zvatamora zvakwana panapa, because there is nothing that is tangible that we can actually claim to say that we have done for the 2030. The propaganda does not work anymore. ZBC propaganda does not work anymore. In fact, today the heralds try to avoid political propaganda, to try to brainwash the citizens by focusing on Valentine's Day surprises and some, just to get the war Geza situation out. But the propaganda is no longer working. So how come ED's team is still trying to push a propaganda that ED has done a lot? Nothing that he can actually point to. He can't point to even one thing that he has done. There was an accident on the Bedbridge Road. 24 people died. I hear that it was a head-on collision, but particularly the Harare Bedbridge Road was never finished in the first place. There is a section of that road where actually mnemishod drivers sango. Now imagine that forest at night with low visibility. You can't really see a lot of things, and the road, there's no marking, there's no whatever. So Mnangagwa has failed. He has failed, and the claim of 2030, I don't know why Ana Ziambi, Nana Owen Muda Ngube, Nana Nonzichiko, Nana Daniel Garu. I don't know, in fact, Geza was right when he said that these people, they only have grade 7 because their ability to read the situation is very weak and is very low. I don't know, is Mnangagwa so stupid that he can understand? Because particularly if these guys are not clever, and with them crossing hairs or crossing their path in Zanu PF with people like Geza. I do not think for a moment, if and I hear that Zuva is owned by Mnangagwa, I do not think for a moment that when the signal is finally given the green light, that when the people are actually now going after Mnangagwa, destroying their property or their assets or anything of that particular sort, that the Gezas are gonna stop it. If Mnangagwa was clever, you would have stepped down immediately, or not even lead past 2023. Wamora zvakwana. But I think Mnangagwa's punishment, I think it was reserved because he has done a lot of crime in the past. He has done a lot of crime in the past. I mean, some point you have to pay up, and I think his D-Day for paying up has come, and is only prolonging it so that the punishment can be more. But people like Geza, on the other hand, they are quick, they were good to read the situation. The citizens are frustrated, and they are using the information based on what really the citizens are feeling, and they are describing the current status quo, which actually allows the citizens to somehow relate and to somehow actually want to protest. They are not using propaganda like the Emmerson Mnangagwas. Particularly, this becomes important to actually removing a rogue president. And I know there is a scare of Gambakwe. I mean, I'm not really discrediting Gambakwe as a as a as a journalist, but sometimes just goes and tells people like, nah, Mnangagwa cannot be removed, Apanji Chiwenga is fired or something of that particular sort. I really don't see it feasible that Mnangagwa can be removed without Chiwenga being fired. I think the only way the Gezas can do these things within the confines of the constitution, it's actually Mnangagwa to be a forced removal through demonstrations where Mnangagwa would do like what Zuma did in 2017 South Africa. That's the only way that I think it can happen. And also, even if it was a coup, I think they can still sanitize it under the same situation where they use the public to say that it was a demonstration from the public. And I don't know for sure though, but Mnangagwa kind of like has them here. When you look at the legislative or the parliament of Zimbabwe, I think he kind of like has them here. I do not know how much MPs of Zanu PF are pro Mnangagwa, but I do know that much of CC or Triple C MPs are pro Mnangagwa. So that becomes important when it comes to looking at it, because if we are to remove Mnangagwa constitutionally, another option would be an impeachment. And I feel that it's going to be difficult work for Geza and Chiwenga to actually go through to go through a phase of convincing the MPs or intimidating them into voting for Mnangagwa to be impeached, because no president wants to face an impeachment. An impeachment would mean prison time after actually being impeached, if an impeachment should go through in Zimbabwe for Emmerson Mnangagwa. So this is a very strategic maneuver. What is it? A strategic maneuver for the war vets and Emmerson Mnangagwa would actually require that Mnangagwa is removed. Another thing though, so yes, another thing that we feel that it's really should be looked at strongly is the issue of what happens post Mnangagwa's era. How are Zimbabweans going to be living? I feel like it's going to be pretty much more of a less situation, although there won't be a ED 2030 or 2030 plan. The only time where things are going to change in Zimbabwe is when there is an actual revolution from the masses within the people, or the protestant, or rather the not the protest what is this the working class that is actually outdrained by the system, That is the only time there can be a change within Zimbabwe, or there can be a change within the political sphere, because these guys have never respected our constitution or the constitution, or respected any rule of law. And who's to say that Chiwenga, once he gets in, is not going to abuse the same institutions? He's not going